The tension in the air was palpable, and Gu, with a sense of urgency, implored Lu Hao to flee from the impending danger. He warned the young man that the impending conflict was not his concern, and it would be safer for him to escape while he still could. As the two engaged in this discussion, these two assassins charged at Gu. These deadly individuals were skilled in their craft, and they wielded a chain weapon with lethal precision. With swift and calculated movements, they ensnared Lu Hao's legs with their chain, effectively immobilizing him. It was at this moment that Lu Hao realized his ghost shadow technique, a formidable martial skill, was rendered useless. The assassins wasted no time and charged towards the defenseless Lu Hao, ready to deliver a potentially fatal blow. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Lu Hao displayed remarkable courage. Without hesitation, he stepped between the assassins and their intended victim, acting as a barrier against their deadly onslaught. Gu, who had initially urged Lu Hao to flee, was taken aback by this turn of events. He watched in astonishment as Lu Hao took a stand, valiantly protecting him from harm. In the midst of this chaos, Lu Hao addressed the assassins, boldly informing them that they had invited him to participate merely as a pawn, someone meant to fill a numerical quota in their sinister scheme. It was clear to Lu Hao that this young man from the Gu family possessed a noble and virtuous character, one worth protecting. With a resolute spirit, he drew his swords and swung them with precision, aiming to thwart the assassins' attacks. Unfortunately, the assassins were not so easily defeated, and they skillfully dodged Lu Hao's strikes, countering his every move. The situation took a dire turn as the assassins grew more serious in their intent. With synchronized movements, they launched a simultaneous assault on Lu Hao, their martial prowess undeniable. Faced with this overwhelming threat, Gu, still reeling from the shock of Lu Hao's intervention, implored him to flee once more. Gu understood that these assassins were formidable adversaries, each belonging to the fourth layer of the condensed Qi realm. Lu Hao, who had only reached the second level of Qi condensation, was ill-prepared to face such skilled opponents. Yet Lu Hao's unwavering confidence and determination prevailed. With remarkable swiftness, he brandished his sword and executed a series of precise strikes, felling both assassins with ease. The sight left Gu utterly shocked. Lu Hao had defeated both assassins with a single powerful blow. Lu Hao himself could hardly contain his excitement, recognizing the immense potential of his martial abilities. He attributed his newfound strength to the 9 revolutions of the Golden Dragon technique and his inherited martial lineage, a combination that proved to be truly formidable. However, the unfolding events were far from over. Just as they were regaining their composure, a mysterious girl emerged from the shadows. She had witnessed the swift demise of her companions and was understandably frightened. She approached Gu, seeking reassurance. Gu, ever the calm presence, reassured the girl that the assassins were no longer a threat and that she had nothing to fear. He tried to calm her nerves, but suddenly, without warning, she produced a dagger from behind and launched a vicious attack at him. Gu managed to evade a lethal blow, but the girl's sinister demeanor was unmistakable. It was apparent that she possessed formidable abilities, potentially even surpassing those of the previous 2 assassins. Gu realized that she was likely a practitioner of the 6th layer of the condensed Qi realm, a level that far surpassed his own capabilities. With deadly intent, the girl unleashed a torrent of attacks against Gu, her every movement driven by a thirst for vengeance. She used her chains skillfully, immobilizing Gu and delivering a powerful blow to his stomach that sent him hurtling through the air, crashing into a nearby tree. Injured and overwhelmed, Gu faced the grim realization that he might not survive this harrowing encounter. As the girl prepared to deliver a final fatal strike, the unexpected occurred. Lu Hao, who had remained in the shadows, emerged with astonishing speed. He unleashed a technique known as the Divine Dragon Fist, channeling its immense power into a direct strike at the girl's abdomen. The impact was devastating, and the girl was incapacitated, no longer a threat. In this critical moment, Lu Hao's prowess shone brilliantly, and he had single-handedly saved Gu from certain doom. Gu, still reeling from the shock of the girl's strength and the subsequent turn of events, could hardly believe his eyes. He had witnessed Lu Hao, with only the strength of the 2nd level of Qi condensation, triumph over an opponent at the 6th level of Qi condensation. The display of martial prowess left Gu in awe of his new ally. Lu Hao, too, was in awe of the power he had just harnessed in his time of need. He realized that, at the critical moment of life and death, he had comprehended the first ultimate technique of the Golden Dragon 9 transformation art. It was a revelation that left him astounded by the sheer might of this martial skill. However, as the adrenaline subsided, he began to feel the draining effects of this extraordinary power. The Dragon Fist of No Regrets, as it was known, was indeed powerful, but it came with significant aftereffects. With their lives no longer in immediate peril, Lu Hao introduced himself to Gu, taking the initiative to break the chain that had bound his newfound companion. He inquired about the bounty on Gu's head, prompting Gu to share his story. Gu revealed that a family conflict had led to a bounty being placed on his head by his own kin. Lu Hao recognized the similarities between their situations, both pursued by their families and seemingly adrift in a world filled with uncertainty. It was this shared destiny that bound them together as kindred spirits, wanderers in a world fraught with danger and intrigue. Grateful for Lu Hao's timely intervention and eager to forge a new path, Gu made a heartfelt promise. He vowed to remember the favor of saving his life and invited Lu Hao to accompany him to the Xuan sword sect. After all, they had come this far together, and their bond had been solidified in the crucible of life-threatening adversity. Lu Hao readily agreed to join Gu on this journey, and he declared that, from that moment forward, they were brothers who would watch out for each other. Their pact was sealed with a symbolic fist bump, an unspoken promise of loyalty and mutual support. As the two newfound companions arrived at the location for the Xuan sword sect registration, they were met by an instructor who outlined the next steps in their journey. It was explained that those wishing to join the Xuan sword sect would first need to pass a qualification test. The participants, including Lu Hao and Gu, entered tents to complete their respective tests. Emerging from the evaluation, Lu Hao encountered Gu Chen once more. Gu proudly shared his results, revealing that he possessed 7 martial veins, a testament to his exceptional abilities. He had been rated as a top-tier candidate in the exam. In contrast, Lu Hao's performance had secured him only 3 martial veins, earning him the lowest possible rating. Gu and the other participants were surprised by this revelation. How could someone with only 3 martial veins exhibit such remarkable strength? The other participants began to cast aspersions on Lu Hao, belittling his abilities and suggesting that he had embarrassed himself by participating in the examination. Unperturbed by their taunts, Lu Hao reassured Gu that he would soon demonstrate his true power during the upcoming competition. All the participants were eventually called together, and the instructor delivered a pivotal announcement. It was revealed that they had all passed the qualification test. However, merely being qualified was insufficient to meet the rigorous standards of the Xuan sword sect. To prove their worthiness, they would need to seize 1,000 platforms within the span of half an hour. This competition would be fierce, as 6,000 individuals would be vying for a mere 1,000 platforms. It was a daunting challenge, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation and trepidation. With the signal from the instructor, the participants surged into action. They sprinted towards the platforms, scaling walls and leaping with agility to reach their targets. Gu, realizing the importance of speed, advised Lu Hao to secure platforms swiftly, as many competitors lay ahead, and the platforms would be claimed rapidly. Lu Hao agreed with Gu's strategy, and the two companions charged forward, determined to secure their platform. Gu successfully landed on a platform, but their pursuit was far from over. 2 competitors approached them, intent on challenging Gu for control of the platform. Gu Chen, his strength and resilience put to the test, defended his platform valiantly. The instructor had set a demanding challenge, to hold the platform for half an hour against a swarm of challengers. Gu knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to prevail. As more and more competitors came at him, their numbers increasing with each passing moment, Gu fought with unwavering resolve. He expertly countered their attacks, swiftly dispatching those who dared to challenge him. It was a formidable feat, but the pressure of maintaining his defense for the entire duration took a toll. Exhaustion began to weigh heavily on Gu's shoulders. He wondered about his new acquaintance, Lu Hao, who had shown such remarkable prowess against the assassins. Gu couldn't help but be curious about how Lu Hao was faring in this challenging test. He knew he had to persevere, for the half-hour deadline felt like an eternity. To his amazement, as Gu stole glances in Lu Hao's direction, he witnessed a remarkable sight. Lu Hao was not merely holding his ground against challengers, he was thriving. The crowd of competitors seemed to have focused their efforts on him, assuming that someone at the second level of key condensation would be an easier target. However, Lu Hao defied all expectations. He defended against an astonishing 50 opponents, skillfully parrying their assaults and proving his mettle. In the midst of the tumultuous contest, Lu Hao emerged as the undisputed victor, securing the top rank in the entire test. Gu couldn't conceal his astonishment at Lu Hao's extraordinary performance. Despite his own impressive skills, he had only managed to defeat a dozen opponents. Lu Hao's astounding prowess left a deep impression, and it was clear that this young man possessed exceptional martial talent. Their instructor, observing the outcome of the competition, addressed the participants who had managed to secure platforms. He announced that those on the platforms would proceed to the next test, known as Flame Body Refinement. In this new challenge, only 500 of the remaining 1,000 participants would be able to advance further within the Xuan Sword sect. The test began with a sudden surge of scorching heat radiating from below, enveloping the participants. The searing heat wave generated an oppressive atmosphere, and the other competitors began to falter and collapse under its intensity. Gu recognized the heat wave as a formidable trial, one that only the most advanced practitioners could withstand. Fortunately, Gu's training had elevated him to the third level of ki condensation, providing him with the resilience needed to endure the fiery ordeal. He stood his ground, though he couldn't help but worry about Lu Hao, who was at the second level of ki condensation. Gu feared that Lu Hao might have already reached his limits. His concern for his newfound friend grew when he turned to look at Lu Hao. To his astonishment, Lu Hao appeared unperturbed by the scorching heat wave. Instead of struggling, he lay comfortably on his platform, seemingly unaffected by the intense heat. Gu was left in awe of Lu Hao's extraordinary resilience and adaptability. The half-hour test felt like an eternity, as participants around them succumbed to the fiery challenge. As the time limit drew to a close, the instructor addressed the remaining participants. He announced that 500 individuals had persevered and completed the test successfully, earning the prestigious title of disciples of the Xuan Sword sect. For Lu Hao, the challenge had been surprisingly straightforward. He hadn't needed to call upon his inherited martial vein or receive the empowerment of the ninefold golden dragon technique. He had faced the trial with remarkable composure and resilience, securing his place as a disciple of the Xuan Sword sect. With their success in the Flame Body Refinement test, Gu and Lu Hao found themselves on a flying ship belonging to the Xuan Sword sect. From their elevated vantage point, they marveled at the vast expanse of the sect's territory, spread out below them like a tapestry of power and mystique. As the ship touched down, they arrived at the Xuan Sword sect's outer disciple area. Their instructor, a figure of authority and knowledge, addressed the newcomers, informing them of the sect's structure. Those who had not been selected as inner disciples would remain in the outer disciple area for the time being. However, the instructor offered hope and encouragement. He explained that an assessment for both inner and outer disciples would be held 3 months later. The opportunity was clear. As long as they diligently cultivated and honed their martial skills during this period, they could still aspire to become inner disciples through the upcoming assessment. Lu Hao recognized the significant distinction between inner and outer disciples. Outer disciples relied primarily on their own cultivation efforts, forging their paths with limited resources and guidance. In contrast, inner disciples received the mentorship of renowned masters and had access to a wealth of elixirs and magical treasures that accelerated their growth. The gap was substantial, but Lu Hao was determined to bridge it. He resolved to pass the assessment 3 months from now and ascend to the ranks of inner disciples. Meanwhile, Gu Chen had already secured his place among the inner disciples, courtesy of his 7 martial veins. In their shared dormitory, Lu Hao received a generous supply of ki condensing pills distributed by the sect. These potent pills were a valuable asset, capable of enhancing one's ki condensation realm cultivation. Lu Hao couldn't help but be impressed by the generosity of the Xuan Sword sect, which seemed committed to fostering the growth of its disciples. Amid the dormitory's furnishings, Lu Hao discovered the room he would call home during his tenure as an outer disciple. Lu Hao stepped into his new dorm room within the Xuan Sword sect with an air of anticipation. He was eager to meet his roommate and begin this new chapter in his life as an outer disciple of the sect. As he entered, he extended a friendly greeting, looking forward to the camaraderie and shared experiences that awaited. However, what he encountered was far from the warm welcome he had expected. His roommate, a young man whose face bore the traces of fear and suspicion, recoiled as Lu Hao entered. The roommate, with a nervous quiver in his voice, hastily exclaimed, "We have nothing to do with each other. Don't even think about touching my ki condensation pill." Lu Hao was taken aback by the abruptness and hostility of the welcome. He had never harbored any intentions of taking his roommate's pill. Nonetheless, the tense atmosphere left him puzzled and somewhat uncomfortable. The following day, as the first rays of dawn pierced through the curtains, Lu Hao found it nearly impossible to sleep due to the cacophony resonating from the corridors and the common area of the dormitory. Restlessness overcame him, and his curiosity led him to venture outside his room to investigate the source of the commotion. Outside, he encountered a sea of fellow disciples, many of them agitated and vocal. The buzzing energy of the crowd was palpable, and Lu Hao couldn't ignore the excitement and unease that swirled around him. Approaching one of his fellow disciples, he inquired about the turmoil, seeking an explanation for the ruckus that had disrupted the morning peace. The response was enlightening and concerning. The fellow disciple explained that the previous day, all the new students, including Lu Hao, had been provided with their ki condensation pills. These pills were a precious resource essential for cultivating their ki and advancing through the ranks. However, a long-standing tradition within the Xuan sword sect involved a challenge faced by the new students. Senior Brother Wu Nang, renowned for his prowess as the strongest among the outer disciples, routinely paid a visit to the newcomers. He demanded their ki condensation pills as a symbolic gift to him, a tradition that had persisted for years. Many of the new students reluctantly surrendered their pills to avoid conflict, as Senior Brother Wu Nang had a fearsome reputation for brutality. Lu Hao's interest deepened as he learned of the predicament faced by the new students. The fellow disciple continued to describe how those who refused to part with their pills faced the wrath of Senior Brother Wu Nang, often enduring a physical beating until they relented. As Lu Hao absorbed this information, he noticed a disturbance within the crowd. It was his roommate, the same one who had issued the unwelcoming greeting the day before. The young man had chosen not to surrender his ki condensation pill, and the consequences were clear. Senior Brother Wu Nang, towering over the room, had the young man pinned against the wall. He had resorted to violence to enforce his demand. The roommate, trembling and beaten, implored Senior Brother Wu Nang to cease the assault and offered to hand over his pill. Lu Hao couldn't stand idly by, watching a fellow disciple endure such torment. He felt a surge of indignation at the injustice he witnessed. Lu Hao moved forward, determined to intervene and make a stand for what was right. He placed a hand on Senior Brother Wu Nang's shoulder, attempting to address him and challenge the unjust practices that had become entrenched within the sect. His voice, though tinged with urgency and frustration, was respectful. The senior responded with a shove, dismissing Lu Hao's concerns and asserting the survival of the fittest doctrine. The unspoken rules seemed to justify Senior Brother Wu Nang's actions, as he took it upon himself to seize the ki condensation pills from the new students. The situation escalated as Senior Brother Wu Nang, his patience waning, accused Lu Hao of seeking to play the role of a hero and of interfering in matters that did not concern him. In a sudden burst of anger, Senior Brother Wu Nang attempted to strike Lu Hao. Lu Hao, with a surge of courage and determination, met Senior Brother Wu Nang's attack with skill and power that astonished onlookers. Lu Hao's fist, infused with the formidable energy of the divine dragon. The collective gasp of astonishment rippled through the crowd, connected with Senior Brother Wu Nang's, sending the senior disciple hurtling into the wall. Senior Brother Wu Nang, dazed and injured, gaped at his broken arm, disbelieving. It was an unprecedented turn of events, as Lu Hao, the new student, had emerged victorious. But the confrontation was far from over. The other senior disciples, loyal to Senior Brother Wu Nang, reacted swiftly. They converged on Lu Hao, launching a coordinated assault, driven by a desire to avenge their fallen comrade. Despite the odds stacked against him, Lu Hao's agility and mastery of the divine dragon's power allowed him to evade their blows with remarkable finesse. In swift, precise movements he countered, striking each of his opponents with forceful precision. One by one, the senior disciples were incapacitated, leaving them bewildered by the prowess of the new student who had dared to defy their established order. Lu Hao's actions had left a lasting impact on the disciples gathered there.